The Delamo area sits on top of the toxic remains of World War II industrial complex. The community is located in unincorporated Harbor Gateway between the cities of Torrance, West Carson, Gardena, and Harbor City. The community includes just over 2,000 residents and is predominantly Latino. Many residents in the community do not speak English as a first language. Cal Emerald Screen is a tool used to estimate the pollution burden in communities. Delamo is ranked in the top 20% of most burdened communities in the state. They are next to two Superfund sites called Montrose and Jones Chemical Site, a chlorine transfer station, the Torrance Mobile Refinery, Dow Chemical Plastics Manufacturing Plant. Besides the site, the community is near two major highways, the 405 and the 110, several landfills, and have several cancer-causing chemicals such as benzene and soil and the water under the home in the community. We were fortunate enough to speak with two members of the Delamo Action Committee, Cynthia and Jan. We also had a chance to talk with Sandra, an ally and community member.
We originally formed the group because of health concerns. So when I lived in the neighborhood, I started developing a rash that wouldn't go away with any kind of creams. And one day I had noticed some bloody tissues in our trash can at home, and I had been getting bloody noses, and I asked my husband, wow, are you getting bloody noses too? And he said yes. And I thought that was pretty uncommon for us. And so we then started asking some of our neighbors about specific things like rashes. We started finding out people were having a lot of nausea and vomiting and things of that nature. And so we found these common issues that people were having that seemed unusual. So it was really protecting our health that got us involved originally.
At first it seemed to be a good location. It was okay, it was fair, and the price range when we bought it. But then I started noticing certain things. Like the soil and the testing. It was too much testing, and I was wondering what are they testing for. Also, a little bit of a gang issue, but not as much as before. Mm-hmm. So I probably started noticing about 6 months after I moved in.
I've known them for a couple of them quite a while. I reached out because I was having some issues and some problems. And so I kept reaching out, and then finally I found these ladies, and they're a home to me. I like what they're doing. I like how they're doing it. And so that's where I've kind of rooted myself now.
This is why we're doing it, and this is what we're supposed to be doing. I think that after 25 years, and we've worked with the regulatory agencies that are supposed to be fixing the problem, we see that the problems aren't really getting fixed, that the responsible parties sometimes have a bigger say than they should have. There's not a lot of enforcement, and really the Delamo Action Committee is trying to be a vehicle for action. We've gotten very involved in reading work plans. I think a lot of times people try to make the information so overwhelming, and if you have a community like ours that has, language barriers, is one of the reasons why I got involved. I think I felt personally I had tools to fight things that I didn't think were right, but what I saw in my community was a community that wasn't really capable of doing that. The documents aren't translated into different languages. If you ask the EPA what's going on, they're always telling you, oh, this, but no problem, it's under, the radar of what we're supposed to have, and they don't tell you, like, yeah, but that particular chemical will cause birth defects. So they're not really giving the community enough information for them to make their own decisions. We don't want to make the decisions for the community, but we really believe and have seen that if communities are given honest, good information, they make really good decisions on their own. So we are really trying to fight for transparency and making sure that the responsible parties pay for the destruction that they've done in our communities.
When thoroughly mixed, the DDT hangs in suspension. If this mixture is sprayed, the DDT makes a residual deposit. It was also found that when the mixture stands for 24 to 48 hours, a creamy layer rises to the surface, indicating a breaking of the emulsion.
The biggest challenge is, I think, having people understand the true dangers of living in communities like ours. It's not just affecting one generation of people or pets or seniors. It's affecting generations. I've lived in the area for 49 years. Love the area. Absolutely love the area. And after I lived here, I mean, I was unaware for years and years and years that we had issues. And then all of a sudden things started coming to light. And as I know more and I'm gaining more knowledge, I realized just how devastating all these chemicals are. And it doesn't just affect you. It doesn't just affect you going out in the garden and picking a tomato off the vine and eating it. It's going to affect your children and their children and their children. And because I've rescued dogs, it's also affected my dogs. My dogs go out there and lick the tomatoes. They eat the tomatoes that I grow. And I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know that I was growing fruit and vegetables in poisoned soil.
I have instructed my community that if I don't feel very comfortable in the next week or so that some things are going to happen, I'm going to have to figure out a new kind of a tactic. And it's just not going to be as pleasant as sitting down here and discussing. We're scared, and we're feeling like we have to start fighting for our lives. Nobody's doing it for us. So I'm here with an open mind, and I'm hoping that this is going to help. And I do appreciate coming down here. But I'm going to be a hard one to sway.
The way that the agencies get so overwhelmed with the problem, they don't even begin to start solving the problem. They just get so overwhelmed. When we first started, a lot of the questions we would get from the EPA is like, okay, but where do you stop? They were always trying to find the boundary of where we would stop looking for problems. And I would try to tell them, I don't know where you would stop. You have to kind of look into it to see where it, feathers out at the edges. And so I think people get so overwhelmed, and the agencies, I talk a lot about the EPA because the federal government is in charge of our most contaminated sites. And, the way that they work is they have so many different people coming in that there's no institutional memory. So I guess the lack of willingness to do something and not be overwhelmed, and then the lack of institutional memory of what's really happening. We have a new project manager for one of our sites who's been there now maybe 4 years, and he comes and tells you like he thinks he knows what he's talking about when you get an update, and then you are correcting him the whole time saying that's not what really happened, and at the end he's like, oh yeah, she's right, thanks. But if you didn't know that and you were just a community person trying to get information, and he's telling you everything's okay, and you have the choice of believing that your family's in danger or everything's okay, people are going to choose everything's okay if you feel powerless to do anything about it. And so we really try to empower the community so that they can take action, or at least decide, what they want to do. Some families are my age and they're not going to be having children, and maybe that's a factor with the contamination there. There are other families who are just starting off, and some of these chemicals can really impact a fetus, and they've chose to move.
So yeah, basically I'm here because I want this community to get rich in culture and, a healthy environment to learn for my kids to grow in the community. I don't have to be the one running away from a community. It's ridiculous. It's really unfair. To be running away from a community it's not right, because the only thing you're doing is just leaving everything as it is, and that's it. And we're here. I believe the Cynthia and the community group, the Delamo community, are here to make a difference. And it's if somebody just drops and says, you know what, forget it, I'm tired, I'm done, it's just not it's doing nothing. You have to continue and continue and continue in order for us to actually make sure things happen and go through.
I would tell them how disappointed I am. I would tell the EPA just how badly I think they've behaved. They are more than just a little bit aware of my situation. I sent them the entire report, like, I don't know, 200 pages from my insurance company. And they chose to just kind of skirt the issue. Oh, well, it's not our fault. It's not our fault. So I would tell EPA and some of the county people as well, the engineer's office down there for one, the DTSC, that they should really just do more to protect the citizens. I feel that we've been failed, not just me, but we as a group have been failed by EPA. We've been failed by the county. We've been failed by the state. All these wonderful programs there to protect the people are not being utilized. For God's sakes, if they just do their jobs, just do their jobs. I don't think anybody here is asking for miracles. We're simply saying, do your job. You know this is toxic. Why do you allow these people to do these things? You're told these things are going on. You're told about the dust. Stop it. For God's sakes, it's just not that difficult to do your job.
One thing would be is to have a healthy environment, a healthy place for children to grow. And by that I mean, healthy soil, healthy air, and also to have a unity among the community. Why is that important to me? Because I feel that it's important as neighbors for us to look up for each other and to work together. Create a sense of, hey, help me, and help you way of sense. And what would I fight for is that it's a small community and we can all become family. And in terms of getting to help each other in many ways. Like, there's a lot of people here that do all sorts of things. And if we can share among each other what we all do, and teach each other how we do it, then I think this will grow to be a stronger community, in a very healthy, socialized way community,
Trying to get the Regional Water Quality Control Board here, but their leadership. Well, I think that the Del Amo Action Committee is actually in a very unique place right now. I think a lot of people in the community, I don't know why, but they don't enjoy fighting endlessly with the agencies and grappling with these hard concerns, and so a lot of them have gone into the denial state. And I think with our park coming in and the programs that are going to be in the park, there's really going to be a shift of community involvement. I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to totally be into the park and the programs for their kids and all the wonderful things that a recreation area like that can bring, and I hope that they gravitate towards that, and that DAC has a small piece in making sure that the programs that the community wants are there given at the park. I think there's another faction of us who are going to keep working on the contamination. I think we're going to get to a point maybe in the next 5 years where a lot of the major decisions on cleaning up the sites have been made. That's a lot of what we fight for now, is making sure we get the best cleanup possible. And it'll be more of a situation where somebody could just follow and make sure that the work plan's being followed. And that might be a lot more digestible for the community. So right now our plan is to do this land use planning effort to try and secure the future of the community and stop some of the bad stuff that's coming in now, like the warehouses and trucks, but then to also create kind of a checklist of things that they can follow on the remediation side. Because as you can probably tell, my hair is gray, I'm getting older, and Superfund cleanups take decades and decades, and we don't want to just keep leaving all this to the next generation. So we're going to do as much as we can to get things documented and get on the right track, and hope that we have a good enough base with the Del Amo Action Committee that it can carry on. It's not an easy thing to have an organization especially an environmental justice organization. It's not a high-paying job. We don't have a 401k or whatever they call them these days. And you just really work a lot, and you really have to have something in you that really wants to see this balance of justice and doing the right thing. And I think as long as there's a path that we see that can make a difference, we're going to take those paths. I think if we get to a point where all you're doing is aggravating the community people by bringing up this horrible situation that they seem to be in, I don't think that's productive. Luckily for us so far, we've seen a lot of paths that I think we've done a good job on.